This episode contains graphic descriptions of sexual harassment. Listener discretion is advised.
I am proud to be a woman.
Girls and women are
powerful,
beauty,
badass,
feminine,
passion,
equality,
power, professional,
diligence,
advocates for change.
Welcome to She Plus, the female empowerment podcast that tells the extraordinary stories of everyday humans. I'm your host, Elise Dean. On today's episode, we spoke with Stephanie Sánchez, a chemical engineer from Venezuela. Before we hear from Stephanie, let's talk about STEM. STEM is an acronym that comprises the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But let's break that down even further. STEM can include things like biology, chemistry, algebra, computer programming, analytics, civil engineering, and chemical engineering. Honestly, STEM encompasses most of the subjects I despised in school. Also, that's not an exhaustive list of all the STEM subjects, but you get the idea. Now, let's chat about the demographics that make up the educational space for STEM. The following statistics were taken from a 2018 report on science and engineering indicators conducted by the National Science Board. In K-12 education, the study found that 21% of male students enroll in engineering courses versus 8% of female students. Moving up to higher ed, the disparities are far greater, especially for diverse women. In 2016, only 12.6% of bachelor's degrees in science and engineering were awarded to minority women. From there, the number drops to 7.8% of master's degrees, and finally, 5% for doctorate degrees. So, with all of that in consideration, let's talk about the actual STEM workforce. According to the report, women make up half of the college-educated workforce, but only 28% of the science and engineering workforce. 28%. Now, if I did my math right, which I did, I checked, that means 72% of the science and engineering workforce is made up of men. Now, it's important to note that this study was conducted 2 years ago, and data changes all the time. But that's still pretty low. And finally, the report found that, and I quote, Hispanics, Blacks, American Indians, and Alaskan Natives make up a smaller share of the science and engineering workforce at 11% than their proportion in the general population, 27% of U.S. working age population. So, to digest, for Stephanie, a female Venezuelan immigrant who has not 1, but 2 degrees in chemical engineering, well, let's just say she's defying all odds. And it started with a push from her mother.
My mom is this incredibly boss woman. She worked her entire life. She when I was about 10, she was director of marketing at this international company. So I had pretty strong female figures growing up. I remember I was really good at math and chemistry, and my mom took me to this university that essentially is all engineering and architecture and sciences. So she's this is where you need to go. And I had no idea what chemical engineering was, right? And she used to buy me Legos when that wasn't the thing, right? I owe so much to my mom. Like I mentioned before, so I was really good at the math and physics and chemistry. So for some reason, I was oh, I'm gonna be in marketing, and she's you'll be good at it, but is that what you want to do? So she really did so much sitting down with me and educating me and exposing me to a lot of different things.
Growing up, Stephanie lived an idyllic life. She lived with her parents and her brother, 30 minutes from Caracas, the capital of Venezuela.
I had my brother who I'm super close with. I think the most defining thing about my childhood is just my parents, how much they lovingly pushed us to be our better selves. The Latin American culture is very still gender roles, right? There's no LGBTQ rights. There's no universal marriage. It's very black and white. But my family was different. So I think that was really at the core what made me.
Stephanie was born in 1994, but only a few years later, things started to change.
I was born in 94, and 4 years later, Hugo Chavez won the presidency. So my parents were super involved in protesting. And I have literally photos of me at 5 years old with a Venezuelan flag t-shirt, going with them to a march. So I just grew up fighting, for democracy, and my parents and my family and my friends, everyone in my circle, right, was just constantly talking about this, constantly talking about when is this guy going to go away? When are we going to be free again?
Her idyllic childhood was swept up by protesting for freedom. Though it was exhilarating, by the time she was enrolled in college, the protests grew more intense.
About, I don't know, couple months into the first semester, protests started again, really intense. And this time I'm, 18, 40 minutes away from my house with my own car. So I started protesting too, right, from the campus. So it got really intense, right? And my dad one day told me that, he was petrified. All these people that we knew were getting arrested, where their lives completely would change, right? And he said, you've always wanted to go to America. How about you finish over there? And then I'm getting choked up. I'm sorry. And then we reassess, we regroup, you get your degree, and then we see how it goes. So, my entire family is over there, my cousins. I was so close with everybody. I had a high school boyfriend I had been with for 5 years. Of course, I did want to come here. I mean, America was my dream to experience it, but now it was very real. So I applied to a bunch of places, and I got into this liberal arts school in the Northeast. And at 19, I just packed a bag and I told everybody, I'll see you in a little bit. And next week, it's 6 years since I left.
6 years since she packed her bags and left Venezuela for the United States. And though her parents relocated to Miami shortly after, Stephanie hasn't seen her extended family in quite some time.
The situation continued to exacerbate to a point that my parents decided it was enough. So they moved to Miami in 2017. December 2017. So I have my immediate family, but my grandparents, I have not seen them since. And it's difficult. It's very hard. It's not just the distance, it's the feeling you can't do anything to help either. You see them lose weight, or maybe struggle to find groceries, or the water's cut off, or you're trying to call them and there's no internet, and it's just you're well, I'm good here, but if I was there, could I still be helping them?
But Stephanie has stayed busy since coming to the United States. She double majored in chemistry and math in college in New Jersey. But remember at the beginning of the episode when I mentioned the demographic makeup of STEM in higher ed? Well, let's get Stephanie's take on that.
It actually is not rare in Venezuela to have women engineer, which is actually very interesting. So it was a bit of a cultural shock when I moved here. Not so much in undergrad because it was such a small school. And in undergrad, it's still not as bad, right? Like in undergrad, it's still like a kind of good split. My biggest thing that I've noticed is, one of the biggest things is, if I had had a different advisor, I might have not gone to grad school. They really don't push women to pursue graduate degrees and academic degrees, like academic pathways. And, partly is because I have had one woman professor in my entire career. So, of course, right, like if you're a 75-year-old white man that has been teaching chemistry or process control for 40 years, maybe you're gonna be more inclined to push your male students to pursue higher degrees.
Like I said before, only 12.6% of bachelor's degrees in science and engineering were awarded to minority women. But let's take it a step further, 7.8% for master's degrees. And you better believe that Stephanie is a part of that 7.8%.
So then when I got to grad school, we were 3 women my year. There was an Asian woman, a white woman, and then myself. So it was hard. It was...
Out of how many people?
We must have been like 35. But I had people tell me that I was a token, that I was a diversity pick. Never mind my 4.0, right? Or like that I ran cross country, did a double major, had 3 jobs. It was just, they saw the last name, they saw my gender, and they just assumed they were better than me and that I must have made it there for the numbers to look good. And it was difficult. And then it gets even more difficult when you start working. So in one of my jobs, I was the only woman east of the Mississippi. And it's hard because you want to look up to your leadership and kind of help them guide you. And how could anybody guide me that hasn't had something close to my experience? There were comments about this professor in grad school that he gave women like above 90 all the time because he liked women. As if, like, first of all, it's like 3 of us. Like, it could very well be that we're just good at the subject. And it's just this like constant battle with microaggressions, that constantly having to go above and beyond to prove that you know what you're talking about. And then if you're a young woman, it's harder. And if you're a young woman with an accent, it's harder. If you're a young woman of color, it's harder, because it makes sense. They go their entire lives either not seeing people like me, or they don't see it in leadership, or they just go through life dismissing them. So when you have to work with them, they don't really see the value in, giving us the same chance you would give. It's always just, I want just equal. Like, I don't need better treatment. Just, you wouldn't say to a guy, oh, you're a diversity pick. And you can't even say anything, right? Because if I say something, if I say, well, I have a 4.0, well, you don't have to be bitter. Or you're being hysterical. Or this is why there are not more women in the industry, right? It's like a constant awareness that you're representing so much. Like, well, if I don't work out, what if they don't hire any more women after me?
So it's pretty clear that women, and especially minority women, are underrepresented in STEM. Though it has gradually been improving in recent years, the numbers are still, well, dismal. And Stephanie has some ideas on how we can encourage more women to pursue their passion.
Talking to young women, like, not just go for undergrad, but like go big. Like, you can be a professor. We need more women professors at the university level. We need more women in corporate positions. We need more women as small business owners in STEM. Like, we need you to tap into your all your gifts and really use them.
Like with anything, it will take time to implement wide-scale change. It may not happen in our lifetime, but there's always a place to start. And according to Stephanie, that place involves what we teach our children.
When you're young, you give the girls, and I'm not totally ditching this, right? But I used to dismember my Barbies because they were so boring to me. There's nothing you can do with it, right? And when I was little, the Barbies still came up with like the slumber party Barbie would come with the guide on how to lose weight, and it said don't eat. Like, so get your daughter Legos, like, help her build something. Like, maybe she likes that and she just hasn't had the opportunity to explore that. I think the most dangerous thing we can do is like buy into this idea, like the Jordan Peterson thing, that like genetically women are more prone to this or that because we're more nurturing or not. Like, it's just all these concepts that we have that just prevent us from pushing ourselves and those that come after us to really defy what expectations are for us. Like, I think what we can do is we can encourage young girls to go to science camp and get them a rocket model. And the hope is that future generations, when I'm 60 years old, they're like, oh my God, like, that's so crazy. You had this happen to you? What do you mean? That's the goal. But it only happens with just more inclusion. And like you mentioned before, it's hard to be a 12-year-old Latina in a classroom and think, yeah, I can totally do it. Because you don't see anybody like you doing it. So it takes that much more courage and energy to go for it. It takes that much more effort to say, okay, I can defy the stereotype of the fiery traditional Latina. Like, I can just be a scientist.
Coming up after the break.
For about a year, I had to like wake up every day and look at myself in the mirror and convince myself that I chose the right career, that I had not made a mistake by being in a male-dominated industry.
This message is brought to you by She Plus Podcast.
It's no secret that I love a good t-shirt with a motivational saying, especially when it empowers women. No, seriously, you should see my closet. And Nobody Jones Boutique really added to my collection with their trendy and unique clothing styles. Nobody Jones offers a new spin on fashion for women's clothing, all at affordable prices too. Check out my post on Instagram to see what I bought from Nobody Jones. Shop now at nobodyjones.la. Welcome back. On this episode of She Plus, we're talking to Stephanie Sánchez, a female Latina chemical engineer, about all things STEM. My brother is a chemical engineer. Growing up, it was commonplace to witness his strange experiments, like converting frying oil into diesel for a truck, or analyzing the chemical composition of pluff mud. I don't even know what that means. Stephanie is a remediation engineer. Obviously, I also have no idea what that means either. So I asked her to describe in non-scientific terms what her work entails. You can thank me later.
So I'm currently a remediation engineer. So I work for a consulting firm. And what I do is anytime there's a spill or a contamination and it gets denoted as a site, so it reaches, right, it exceeds certain environmental levels, I design plans to remediate, to clean it up. So, for example, the VP oil spill, right? There were remediation engineers working to remove it from the water. And then if it gets to the ground, remove it from the soil, remove it from the groundwater. And then after you remove it, you continue to monitor it, right? Is it stable? Are we still keeping good levels? So most of these things happen in low-income communities. So when you clean it, the property values go up. So it's not, obviously, the Mother Earth is super important, but also so many things go unnoticed in communities that so desperately need them to be noticed. So when I do get to work on a project that maybe is located in a place that really needs the boost, it feels really good.
And Stephanie loves what she does as a remediation engineer. But at one point in her career, she often questioned if she'd made the right choice in choosing a male-dominated industry.
I was working one-on-one with a former coworker, and anything from inappropriate comments about my appearance to touch me extremely inappropriately, right? To straight up saying he was gonna essentially barge in my room at a hotel when we were gonna go into a conference. So it was dehumanizing. I think that the one moment that really marked me, we were in an elevator and he came really close to me and he came to my neck and sniffed me and said that I smelled good. And then later that day, I wasn't familiar with where we were working at, so I asked if I could use the bathroom, and he said, he poked my stomach and asked me if I needed to discharge. It was completely you don't know what to say. You don't know what to say at all. I mean, this is a person that has been working there for a really long time. You're young. I was had no idea how to react in the moment. I just really wanted to go home.
Stephanie said she reported the harassment to Human Resources, but the punishment was no more than a slap on the wrist. To Stephanie, it felt as though she had the burden of proving the harassment by providing witnesses. It was a draining process for Stephanie. She just wanted to go home, but it didn't stop there.
The thing that kind of was a slap on my face was sometime after that, a woman was in the process of being hired, and they sent her to go training with her. And I just felt either they thought I was the problem, or they thought that what happened didn't matter. I was I just couldn't believe that they thought it was gonna be fine. Unless they thought somehow I had provoked it. So that was very difficult. Now, again, I'm lucky that it happened at a moment where I felt strong enough to say something, that I had my family and my boyfriend there to like kind of hold me through it. After that, for about a year, I had to like wake up every day and look at myself in the mirror and convince myself that I chose the right career, that I had not made a mistake by being in a male-dominated industry. And it was really hard because I was like, why could I not, like, I don't know, something with more women in it? And I think that was the hardest, that like he made me doubt what I love to do and like what I had worked so hard to accomplish. It felt so wrong that he had so much power over me, and it took a lot to overcome that. And like, obviously I'm so much better now because it's a completely different environment, but it just wasn't easy. It's still, I mean, to this day, like, nobody can touch my stomach. I would, like, literally...
It's taken time for Stephanie to heal and move forward. But Stephanie soon realized that she will not let this define her or her success.
You are so much bigger than this one thing that happened to you in one moment. So I can't be afraid, right? I was so young, I could have quit. I can't be afraid of what's lying ahead and sacrifice the success that I may have because this one guy. So I think what I would say to women in STEM is pursue it, like be brave. It can be hard, but you're not alone. One of the things that helped me is, I became really active in the Society of Women in Engineering, and there are resources and there are forums. If you do go through something, I talked to a lot of women that had similar experiences, and it helped so much to know that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't crazy, that it wasn't my fault, that I shouldn't doubt what I'm doing and what I love, because it's important that we're here and that even through things like this, that we stay here. Because if not, they win, right? If I had quit, then he would have won.
Stephanie recognizes the importance of sharing her harassment experience, but she also wants you to know that her story should not give you caution if you want to pursue a career in STEM.
So if you are at an age right now where you're either entering STEM or you're in it and you're going further with your career, you are carving a path. You're doing the work, you're breaking the wall, you're like grabbing your hammer and really going at it. And that's really special. And we are not alone. Like, we are dispersed, but we are out there, and it's so worth it. Like, become a member of, whatever society there is for your specific field within STEM. Do get involved if there's a local pod with the 500 women scientists. Like, it helps so much to be able to have a space where you don't have to make any man comfortable, where you can just tell your story, and they will listen to you, and they will give you theirs, and you will find comfort and encouragement to keep going.
And it's not just women that should take something away from this story. Stephanie wants her story to resonate with men, too. And she has a few words of wisdom for our workforce allies.
Sometimes men, and especially in STEM, if they're progressive or feminist, they may feel like, well, what can I do? And it's just be nice, just treat me like you would treat anyone else. And just, if someone else is saying something about me, I can't say anything. Like, intervene. Say, like, she's not a token. Like, you you don't know her. Like, you don't know where she comes from, how much effort she put. I think, like, sometimes we focus so much on how much we can band together and keep going, but it is also important to have the backup right now. While in the meantime, while we get to the end goal of, equality and representation, like, if you are a man and you are progressive and you believe I'm your equal, you need to go a little bit further than that. Like, you need to say something if you're hearing or seeing something egregious. And if somebody comes and reports sexual harassment, then take it seriously.
That's all for this episode of She Plus. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And hey, follow us on social media at she_plus_pod. We post everything you need to know about upcoming episodes and more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.